Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of the React crash course. In the previous episode, we looked at how we create components to segment our code and how we can pass props, be it static, data or functions, up and down through parent and child components to manage our data. In this episode, we're going to take a look at state and how it's useful for creating, managing and manipulating data. We'll also take a look at how we can add forms to our app, which will really cement our knowledge of state and show how useful it can be. So if you remember, the last component we created was this team members component. And if we take a look at the team members file, we're defining an object or an array of data, and we're iterating through and passing props through to our team member function. We're receiving those props in, and we're showing on the screen the name, department, and a button with a function that we pass through as a prop in order to delete that person. If we go back to the team members component, you can see that all we're doing with that delete team member function is console logging out the team member. Now we could, in theory, go ahead and say team members equals team members dot filter, and we can just return back anyone with the ID that is not equal to the ID we passed. Hit save. We'll need to change this from a const to a let so it's in theory manipulable. And if we console log our team members after we've done that, we can see what's going on. So if we now hit the delete button on John at the top with an ID of 1, deleting team member 1, and we've now got 2 items left in our array of people, Sally and Dave. But you'll notice on the screen nothing's changed, because you can't manipulate this data and then re-render it to the DOM without a full page refresh. In fact, if we did a full page refresh, we would just reload this team members object, which would show all 3 team members. If I refresh the page, you can see there nothing's happened. And this is where state comes in. State is going to allow us to create, manipulate and manage data and other things in our app. So for now, we'll remove this code and we'll take a look at how we can add state. So the first thing to do is at the top here on line 2, we want to import, in curly brackets, use state, and it's in the React library, and hit save. The second thing is within our team members component, we want to add a new line, and we'll say const team members and then set team members. So the first part of this array is what we want to call our stateful item, and we're going to call it team members as we did before. And the second part is the name of the function you want to use to manipulate this data. So set team members. And as a general rule, you would just prefix set and then camel case the name of the stateful item. We're going to say equals use state, and we'll initiate that function. So we're going to get an error because we've redefined team members here. We won't worry about that for a moment. The next thing to know is inside of these brackets, you can set what you want to be the default data for this stateful item. So we'll go ahead and remove our array from here and pop that inside of these brackets. And then we can remove this line 24 and hit save. So what we're doing again is we're defining team members as a stateful item, and we've got a function called set team members which we'll use shortly to manipulate the data, equals use state, and we're setting this default data for team members. Now you'll notice as I've saved that the page is re-rendering perfectly, and if I remove G from there and hit save, there we go, that's now re-rendered. So the next thing we want to do is manipulate this data once we've hit the delete button. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to say let underscore team members equals, and we'll spread team members. So all I'm doing here, because team members as a stateful item cannot be manipulated directly, is I'm setting a copy of the team members item, and then I'm going to say underscore team members equals team members dot filter, and we'll say where the t.id is not equal to the ID that we pass through, and hit save. And then the final thing we want to do is update this stateful item. So this is where the set team members function comes in. So we'll set team members is underscore team members, and hit save. So again, all we're doing is we're making a copy of the team members stateful item. We're filtering through any team members that don't have the ID that we pass to this function, and then we're updating our team members with the set team members function. And now if we hit delete in here, you'll see that John disappears, Sally disappears, and Dave disappears. So that's the basics of how you can use a stateful item. So let's have a look at adding a form, which will give you a better idea of the different things you can use with state. So we'll just minimize this a second, and we'll create a new div inside of here, div with a class name of new team member. And inside of here, we'll go ahead and just use some basic HTML tags. So form, and we'll add an input with a type of text, an ID of name, and we'll copy that down and have one for the department. Hit save. There we go. We've got a basic form on the page now. If we refresh, our team members will come back. And then we'll need to add a button, add team member. Hit save. There we go. Now if we just add a bit of style to this, new team member, padding 20 px, give it a background color and a margin, and then we'll just finally give a margin to our input fields. There we go. So there's our basic form. In fact, we could also add a placeholder department. There we go. If we hit save, there we go. So there's our basic form, but at the moment the form isn't doing anything apart from you should be able to see it's re-rendering the page, and we can see it's trying to pass some form data through, because at the moment this is using the default event of form. So once the form's submitted, we'll want to do something with the data that's been input into the form. So let's create a submit team member function, const submit team member, and then we'll say console.log adding team member, and then inside of our form tag we'll say on submit, and again this is camel case because it's JSX, equals submit team member. Now by default this on submit for the form is going to pass through a form event, so we can receive that event in here. So we'll say event into our function, and we'll need to say event.prevent default, and this is going to stop the form doing what it thinks it should do and instead do what we want it to do. So if I hit save and hit this button now, I'll just get rid of that question mark off of there, you'll see that it's doing nothing apart from saying adding team member, and there's been no re-render of the page. The next thing we want to do is say that this button has a type of submit, although it was submitting anyway, but this is best practice because in JSX you can have buttons do different things. So we'll hit save, and there we go. So at the moment we've created a basic form on our page. We've created an on submit function which is going to take the event, prevent the form from doing what it thinks it should do, and then do what we want it to do. But at the moment, this form is useless because we're not handling any of the data that's being input. If I type something in, nothing happens. So let's have a look at how we can use the state to manage our form. So the first thing to do is set a stateful item to manage our form data. Now we could just say const name set name equals useState and set it as blank. But if we did that for every input value, where we have larger forms, so we could be collecting their start date, their job description, their salary, our stateful items is going to get very large and unmanageable. So instead, we're going to set a stateful item of form data and set form data for the function equals useState, and we'll define an object, and inside of this object we'll set the name is equal to blank and the description is equal to blank. So we're setting a form data stateful item which is going to collect everything that we input into our form. Now there are two things we need to do on our input components. The first is to say that on change, and again this is camel case for JSX, equals, and we'll define a function in a moment, handle input change, and we'll just add that to the department as well, change handle input change, camel case handle input change, and let's go ahead and define that function here. So const handle input change equals fat arrow, and then we're going to pass to this handle input change the default event that the input component passes once this function is called. And inside of here we're going to say set form data. So again we're manipulating this form data stateful item, and we're going to say that we spread anything that's currently in that form data item, and this will make sure we don't overwrite any of the other form fields. And then we'll override that with event.target.id. It's the event.target.value, and hit save. Handle input change is not defined. What have we done there? Handle input change. There we go. The second thing we need to do on each of these components is to set the value. So we'll say value equals, and it's going to be form data.name, and value equals form data.department. So just to recap what's happening here, when this form loads, the value of the input fields is going to be directly from the default values we set for our form data stateful item, which at the moment is blank and blank. And then once we make a change to this input field, or on each change we make, which is ultimately a key press, we're going to call the function handle input change and pass the event, the default event of the input field. We're going to pull that event and update our form data stateful item with whatever was currently in the form data, but overwriting it with the current ID and value. So if we type in Tim, on each key press it's called this function, updated the state, and the value of the input field is equal to that item in the state. So within the blink of an eye we're doing a few different things, but React is built to cope with these types of events. And then if we say department, finance, hit add team member, in fact I'll refresh the page to remove that error. Tim, finance, add team member. I just noticed there that we've got this error because I've defined that as description and it should be department. There we go. So just to pick up on that point, this was looking for the form data.department, but we had form data.description. So it thought we were trying to manage an uncontrolled component. So I've just fixed that error. Okay. So now if we refresh and type something in, yep, we're absolutely fine. So now we're setting the form data state with our input fields. the next thing to do would be to manipulate the team member state in order to add a new team member to our list. So let's go ahead and do that. So if we go back to our submit team member event, which is what's happening when we hit submit or hit the add team member button on the form, we can console.log our form data to see what's going on. So again, we'll refresh the page, fill in this form. So say Dave, drivers, add team member, and there we have adding team member, which is on line 39, and then we have the form data from our state outputting. So you can see name Dave, department drivers. So with that data, we can now set team members, and team members will be the current team members, and we'll add in a new object with a name of form data.name and a department of form data.department. And the final thing we'll want to do, because if you remember in the team members object, we're storing an ID so that we can manage that data and delete items. So we'll say the ID is equal to the team members dot length. And the reason I'm just doing length is because the length of this will be 3. So actually we'll need to do length plus 1 and hit save. Now if we click add team members, you can see that Dave is adding to the list. So let's add again Dave, finance, add team member. Dave's adding to the list again. We already had Dave. Let's try Jane in finance, add team member. There you go, you can see Jane adding. So just to recap what we're doing, we've got this form that is capturing name and department, and as we change those input values, we're updating the state of form data, and then when we submit, we're taking the data in form data and manipulating the team members stateful object. The final thing we could do to reset the form would be to set form data name to blank, department back to blank, and then each time we submit this form, the name will reset. So that's how to use forms in React and state to be able to manage and manipulate and add data. But let's just go over one more example of how we can use state to manage our screen. Now at the moment, the form for adding a team member is always at the top of our page, but it might be that we only want to show this form when we're ready to add a new team member. So we could add another stateful item of const show form and then set show form equals use state false. So we're setting a stateful item of whether to show the form or not, and then a function to set that stateful item. And if we go down to our form here, we can add some curly brackets and say show form, then show the form, else null. And if we hit save, the form disappears. So the next thing to do would be to add a button to show the form. So we can say if we're not showing the form, then return a button and add team member. And if we create an on-click event for this, and what we'll do here is we'll manipulate the state directly within this button. So we'll call a fat arrow, an empty function, and we'll say set show form true. And then finally null if the form is showing. So if we hit save on that, the curly bracket, hit save on that, we now have a button that says add team member, and when we click the button, the form should have shown. Let's have a look. There we go. So the form now shows. But again, we may want to cancel this form because we're not ready to add a team member. So let's go to our form and we'll add in a second button. Type equals button, and we'll say cancel. And so the on click on this button is going to be an empty function with set show form false. And if we hit save and refresh the page, we can now click add team member to show the form, and we can click cancel to hide the form. So all we're doing is we're just updating this boolean value in the state for show form and deciding whether or not to show the form. Now hopefully all of that makes sense, but let's just go over one more example of state and how we could use it. Let's say we want to filter these team members based on their department. So we could, above our team members here, is we could create a div with a class name of filter, and inside of there we'll create a select, and we'll create an option for so a value of all departments, and we'll set one for finance. Shown with a value equal to development, and then finally we've got finance, development and management. So let's add another option for management and hit save. So there we go, we've got this drop down. We'll just add some style to it. Filter. So we can see what's going on. There we go. So we've got our team member form at the top, which we can show and hide. And at the moment we've got a filter set, and the first item was all departments. So in order to use this filter, we'll set a new stateful item of const department, set department equals useState, and we'll default it to all departments. The next thing we'll do is set the value of our select to department. So that's going to still say all departments because that's what we've set it to. You'll notice we've got a warning here that we've provided a value prop to a form field without an onChange handler. That's the next step. So when we onChange, we're going to receive a function, we're going to receive the event, and we'll say handle filter, and then up here we can define that function, const handle filter. We're going to receive in the event, and we will set department of the event dot value. There we go. So if we hit save on that and refresh our page, we're fine. So as you can see, as we change this drop down now, we're calling the handle filter and passing the default event of the select. We've defined the function, we're passing the event through, and we're setting our department in the state to be whatever the value was chosen. So as we change, it changes. Now at the moment, this isn't manipulating the data of our team members. So let's go ahead inside of here and we'll say return the t.department is equal to the department that we've chosen, or the department is equal to all departments. And we'll just use the ternary there, else we don't want to show them. So what that's going to do is iterate through our team members. In fact, we'll save this and we'll just remove that. Save. We'll remove this. So at the moment, let's go back to all departments. Refresh the page. Right. So now we have all departments as the default department. As you can see, we're setting it here. And because our ternary says if the department is equal to all departments, then just show the team member. But if we change this department to finance, you'll notice everyone disappears. And if we set it to development, that's not working. Why is that not working? Right, it's because we should be setting the event.target.value. If we hit save and refresh, right, there we go. So when we change to finance, we've updated the department in the state, and because now the team members department is equal to finance, they're outputting. If we say development, if we say management, all departments, and then we get all of our team members back. So that's the use state hook, and how it can be used to create, manage and manipulate data on the fly without needing to do a full page refresh. You'll notice that as we change the state, whether it was the team members or the boolean values or the filter, every time we made that change, the DOM re-rendered with the new version of the state. In the next episode, we're going to look at the useEffect hook, which is really handy for loading data into the page on page load, for listening to changes to that data and being able to then call functions or update our page, and also functions that can be passed to the useEffect that are called when the page finishes. If you haven't already done so, I'd really appreciate a like to this video, and if you want to stay up to date with all the new episodes, make sure you hit the subscribe button.